Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the third edition of the New Earth Summit, India's first integrative summit on solutions to our problems in health, food, farming, and environment. I'm Sophie from the Earth Keepers Connect Goa, your host for this evening. I extend a warm welcome to our audience, also on behalf of our summit convener, Darryl D'Souza, and our 10 Earth Keeper groups in India and overseas. We express our gratitude to you for joining us so that all watching this live webinar and its recording may benefit from the science and wisdom of the holistic models being presented on this platform, which will help us all co-create a beautiful world. Now, our topic for today is In Search of the Coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2. There's much controversy on whether this coronavirus actually exists. Even the common man on the street has noticed that people in his own home are not passing it on to each other. Events like the Kumbh Mela, where lakhs of sadhus gathered in close proximity, there was no presence of it. And isn't it odd that neither was it present at the farmers' rally where farmers in India have been coming together in protest? So our speaker today, Darryl D'Souza, will be presenting a summary of evidence on this topic for about 45 minutes, after which we will open up the panel for anyone who raises their hand and wants to present their perspective or research on it. I will bring them into the panel after Darryl's presentation so that they may express their views to our audience. Now, let me introduce you all to Darryl D'Souza. Darryl has been teaching people how to reverse chronic illnesses with integrated natural therapies for over 16 years. His own 14-year journey of illness, which almost ended his life in 2004, owing to the failure of allopathic medicine in curing him. His book, Become Healthy or Extinct, as well as his lectures, seminars, webinars, workshops, and residential retreats on mind, body, and spirit healing are sought out by individuals and organizations across the globe. Darryl was the secretary of the World United Doctors and Healers Association for 5 years, during which he curated and convened their annual continued medico-spiritual education conferences. Darryl is also an organic farmer, an environmentalist, a TEDx speaker, founder of Earth Keepers Connect, ambassador of Vegan Nation, convener of the New Earth Summit, and a speaker at the World Parliaments on Spirituality. Over 20 years, Darryl has been researching soil, animal, marine, plant, and human biology, as well as planetary ecology, sociology, and holistic living, all of which has inspired him to launch the New Earth Summit as a platform to showcase their integrated and symbiotic functioning. If you would like to receive the recorded video of this webinar, please subscribe to our channel, our YouTube channel, The New Earth Summit. Darryl, if you could now begin your presentation, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, and good evening to all our audience on this very interesting topic. And I have been, researching about viruses since quite a long time. And even when the AIDS epidemic happened, and there are similar doubts about, the HIV virus. So today I'm going to put some evidences and observations to everyone, and we are going to go into a little introspection and try to understand what we are experiencing in terms of this virus. So I'll start with a presentation. So this first slide is, as it says over there on the left hand side, that's the actual electron microscopy or SARS-CoV-2. And I've given the source over there, and it's from the CDC. That's how electron microscope pictures look like. And on the right hand side, you see very fancy and colorful, images of the virus. And of course, those are computer animation. And you have probably even seen videos of these virus moving their spike proteins. So are the things that the appendages or tentacles that they have, and various how they get into the human body. But surprisingly, till today, there is no video of this so-called viruses moving around. So we look at that in more detail, right? Now coming to the isolation of this virus. Okay, so there are first I will talk about isolating the virus. There are steps to all of this. So going logically to the steps, the first is the isolation in a medical laboratory through certain scientific steps. Then the next is that just by isolating it, it's not enough. The next is proving it is not inert or dead material and it has mobility, meaning in the definition of the virus, of course, they say that outside the human body, it is dead. But once it gets into the human body, it starts this process of, even through its uh, what is called its spike proteins. Uh, for example, once it gets into the human body, it starts using the biological material of the body to multiply. But even before that, there is one step. That is its process of getting into the human body. Uh, does it go into the human body? That means, is it alive? Is it mobile outside the human body? Of course, all the experts say that no, it is a completely dead material outside the human body. So the important question is, how did it get into the human body? There are only two ways. If it was not alive and made its way into the human body, and all of its spike proteins and all of the structures completely dead, then the only other way is that the human body sucks it in by some mechanism. Now, the first thing is that it's easy to understand that the human body is not so stupid to suck in some, infectious organisms and infect itself. The human body tries always to keep out these things from the human body, and it always takes in only things that are good for it. So we know that basic biology. So till today, there is no video of this process also ever shown that the human body does something to bring in the virus. I mean, of course, it goes into your, if you touch your hands to your mouth, it goes into your mouth, it goes into your eyes. But we're talking at the cellular level. It's just dead material. So whether it's inside your nose, we are being told that, it gets into the cells of into the mucosa of your nose. Now that can only happen if the human body takes it. So that has not been proved till today. Then the next thing about multiplying in the cells of the human body, we'll have a look at that. I will present some slides on that. The next step is that once it multiplies, that multiplication and the process of the cells eating up the human, cellular matter, uh, that causes damage to the cells. And such damage cannot be repaired by the cell. Of course, we daily so many things get into our body, and certain amount of damages happen. I mean, what I want to, yeah, damages happen, but the immune system does a repair function and heals that damage. The next step is that if it doesn't heal this damage, okay, then you have negative effects happening to the human body, which are experienced as the classic COVID symptoms. What you can see: dry cough, fever, body pain, breathlessness, extreme fatigue, loss of taste and smell. Now, after these symptoms, that means you are sick, Then the next step is when it leaves the human body and infects others also. That is starting again from step 3. And only when it gets to others, that's the time we talk of it as a contagious disease, and we need to take some steps to prevent others from getting it, right? If it just infects your own body and it lives on it and it kills you and it does not go to anybody else, then it's just a few people on the planet will die. So that's the seventh step, the transmission. So first I will go to the first step. There are three popular methods now in the world of isolating this virus. The first is the most popular PCR test. And if you can clearly see what's written there, it takes genetic material from the nose, runs it through an enzyme called reverse transcriptase, and changes the viral RNA into DNA. That is then multiplied exponentially from what you know as cycles and CT cycles to find if the fragments of the virus are present in the person. Now, this is the first thing, is that a fragment is something that is common to other coronaviruses also. And from that fragment, you cannot really tell that this actually belongs to that particular virus. So it's very necessary to get a whole sample of the virus, which till today it has never been done. A complete isolate of the virus has never been done. So the second step is that this segment of it, it is compared to a computer generated sequence of the virus. Now, what is this computer generated sequence? They generated it by computer because they have never till today got the entire sequence through any other method. So it is just a proposition, a building of blocks, and it's like drawing a human being just from your own imagination and saying that this is this person. So that point is very important. And also, when they say that this fragment of this virus that is isolated from a person, it they match it for the spike protein. But the thing is that when you have never isolated the complete virus till date, and you don't know, how it really works. So how do you claim that you are very familiar with its spike protein, and then you are matching its spike protein? Now, the last part is when this test is run at lower cycles, it gives still 30% false positives. And at higher cycles, as you can see, 30, 35 cycles, it's 70, 97% false positive. And at 40 cycles, it's about 99.99% false positive when compared to the gold standard of viral culture. And then after 2 slides, I'll talk about what viral culture is, if it is being taken as the baseline, and whether that viral culture test is actually, 100% foolproof. So nowadays, most of this CT, the scans are being done at 35 cycles to 40 cycles, which is showing that this test by itself is showing very high false positives. Now, basically, this test is flawed in its basics because it doesn't work with the whole, virus itself. It takes fragments that are common to many other coronaviruses, and that's why it cannot really identify. And this is what the inventor, Carrie Mullis, of this test also said. He said with the RT-PCR test, you can never be sure that you have found the thing that you're looking for and that it is infectious or doing any harm to the human body. Now, the next test is the RAT test, or the rapid antigen test. It also takes a sample like similarly to the PCR test from a nasal swab, and that sample is mixed with a solution that again breaks up the virus. So first of all, even in that sample, they do not take the complete virus. They just take certain material and they mix it in a solution, and again they get fragments. And here it says that they it frees up the viral proteins from its surface. Of course, it will free up viral proteins and all of that. But what are you matching these proteins with when you have never ever isolated a complete virus? You're only working with a computer generated model. So this mix is then put on a paper strip. It contains an antibody tailored to bind to these proteins. And if they are present in the solution, there's a fluorescent glow. But again, as you can see, what I shared is that those viruses are common to many other coronaviruses, those fragments. And because the complete isolation has never been done till date, then it is really not possible to identify the specific spike protein of this so-called SARS-CoV-2. And only if you know that protein, then you can talk about its antibody. So again, this test doesn't have any basis of isolating and working with a reference of any real sample of the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Lastly, viral culture. Now, before going to this explanation, just to share with people, those who are familiar with laboratories and culturing and the pathology lab, a simple culture, for example, you can culture bacteria, you can culture fungi, a mold, and various other microorganisms. And all that you'd have to do is put a growth medium, okay, which is their food. So to culture a bacteria, they put a glucose solution, and they keep it for 2 3 days. And the small counts of bacteria, small colonies, they grow in number, and then they identify that these are 2 3 infections in this blood sample or urine sample or stool sample. So what is done? You just take the small doses of the organism, you put it in a food medium, and then it multiplies and it grows, and you can actually identify what it is. So, but in viral culture, what is done? Again, somehow they claim that they have found this complete virus, and they inject it into living cell lines in a laboratory, but along with adjuvants. Now, what are adjuvants? They are toxic chemicals to create cellular damage, and this so besides the so-called isolated virus that they inject into these living cell lines, they also add toxic chemicals in it to create some cellular damage. And this is what they claim facilitates the multiplication of viruses. But simple question is that what all of us are going through? Are we being subjected to chemicals like imidazole, and all of these phenyls and ethanols? No, we just are supposed to be getting infected naturally and multiplying. So this lab test environment, it really does not match our real scenario. And at the bottom, you can see German biologist Stefan Lanka. Through his experiments, he proved that even without, in these living cell lines, even without injecting any virus, living virus or fragments of virus, just by putting these adjuvants inside, the cells went to toxicity and they went to breakdown, and certain material was excreted from the cells, which are being called as viruses. So the point I want to mention very clearly here is to understand this mechanism that these so-called viruses are excreted after toxic material causes damage to the cells. Okay. So what I'm stating here is even viral culture is not a natural process like we do in the normal culturing of all other organisms. Uh, and the last point again, the same effects of cellular breakdown and expulsion of protein matter or viral protein from the cell happens without the injection of any living virus or virus segment. Here is one statement from, and like this, there are, I think, in the world, maybe about 100 statements uh, where you can see here Dr. Derek Noss, clinical scientist with a PhD in virology and immunology, stated that he has tested 1,500 so-called declared COVID-19 positive, some samples in his lab with his assistants using Cox postulates, similar steps that what I'm talking about. And after looking under the electron microscope, they found no such SARS-CoV-2 virus in any of the 1,500 samples. Instead, they had some other influenza A or influenza B. And then they sent the samples to Stanford and Cornell and other universities, and those people also got the same results. No SARS-CoV-2, only influenza. And they all spoke then. There's a video about him explaining all of this. And I'm saying this is just one of probably 100 independent scientists, across the globe saying the same thing. So they all took it to CDC and the Center for Disease Control in USA. And CDC said they could not provide any, viable samples. That means even they did not have samples of this SARS-CoV-2 virus. So they finally came to the conclusion that this thing does not exist. And most of the people who died due to other sicknesses and the normal flu. And well, they claim that they are suing the CDC for COVID-19 fraud. Now, this statement is from a document that's you can see on the right hand side, the truth of the scamdemic, and you will find it on Awaken India Movement website. Just go to awakenindiamovement.com and over there go into the section where it says legal and important documents, and from there you can download this document, and this is just one paragraph of about another a dozen statements by expert virologists and immunologists stating that till today through their scientific methods they could not really find the complete isolate of the virus. And here is some more links. I'm going to put it in the chat after my presentation. You'll see a lot of microbiologists and virologists also giving similar explanation that till today nobody has been able to find the SARS-CoV-2 virus. You can see most of them are on BitChute because whenever such truth is put on YouTube, it gets taken down. There's Dr. Stephen Lanka, his videos over there. I watched, I think, 3 of his videos, which are close to 1.5 and 2 hours. Very detailed, with a lot of good, very basic and important science. That's a quick one, the last one there, probably faster than my presentation today, just in 19 minutes. So after my presentation, I'll share it in the chat window and you can spend days on listening to all these videos with their scientific explanations of how none of them could till today find this SARS-CoV-2 virus. And Stephen Lanka is one of the main reference scientists for advocate, Dr. Rainer Fulmich, and his team of about 1,000 doctors and biologists and virologists, immunologists across the globe, who are now some of them run the German COVID, COVID investigation committee, and they are suing the Davos Forum for this fraud against humanity. So what I've given as a picture here from his Telegram group, I will put that also in the chat. And every day you will see the progress that's being made there. And they also firmly of the view that this virus is a hoax, it does not exist. But I will, in subsequent slides, I will explain what is happening, why these symptoms are coming. In fact, even I had them. So what causes them? So again, just revisiting, this is the first step that I went through, isolation in a medical laboratory, which has not happened till date. Um, Even the second step, there is no videos on it, though you have, very high definition microscope videos of so many, very microscopic organisms. Still today, there is no video of this SARS-CoV-2 virus. And electron microscope, it's claimed that it can only take still photographs. But there is a such thing that's called, progressive slides. If cells are getting infected and the virus is multiplying, then you can do a time delay of whether you want 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 hour. You can definitely do time delay snaps and show that is happening with that particular culture or those live cell lines in which the virus is supposed to be multiplying. But even for the benefit of science, that has not been done till today. Neither has this been proved. So I will just go to the next point. Even through the electron microscopy, uh, this has never been proved in the lab. Multiplying of the cells and the damage. But yes, people are experiencing all of these symptoms. And other people too are getting these symptoms. So is it happening from one person to the other, or is it something that's happening all across the globe from some other source? Now coming back to that thing that is isolated and that picture that I showed you. Yes, definitely it looks like some material. But what is written here? I will just explain very simply to give you a correlation. And we are talking of the human body right now. So let's say that you have a foot injury, you bang your ankle against a rock and it starts bleeding. Of course, there'll be blood plasma, and in a couple of days, you're going to have a brown scab that has formed on it. And as it's healing and it's tender, if I go and poke my finger at it and press it, and you'll say, and I ask you, is it alive? You'll say, of course, it is a living material. Then I have to ask you, from where did it come? You will say that, it's come from within my body. It is created by my body. And when I ask you the question, uh, what was the process before that? You will obviously say, well, my body had an injury. My immune system gave an automatic response and put the blood and the blood plasma, and with the dry air around it, it healed. So the fact is that first injury happens, then immune system starts functioning. It goes through a repair mechanism. And then after your wound is healed, after a week, the scab will fall on the ground. Then I will go and pick up that scab and ask you, now, is this a living matter? And of course, you're going to say, no, it's dead matter. If I ask you, uh, can it walk around, move its tentacles around? You say, no, of course, it's dead. Then the next question is, can it go and infect another person? What if I eat it? And you say, of course, it cannot do anything to anybody. And you may try and eat it. Maybe nothing will happen to you. And just to mention, in my childhood, when I used to have, injuries like this, and the scab used to fall off very inquisitively, I used to look at it and I used to even bite it and eat it up sometimes. So I was very, had interest in everything around me. So this is actually what is happening to the human body. There are toxicities, there are damages happening from the external environment, from the things that we subject the human body to. And because of those injuries, of course, an automatic healing is going to happen. And always when there is healing, the healing material is generated by the human body. And then after the healing process is over, it is discarded and people can find things around the place. So there's always a cellular protein structure, which is the byproduct and the end result of a healing process that is discarded. And the fact is, from right from the time of the starting of life on this planet, whether it was the first cellular organism, the very time the first cellular organism on this planet had an injury, because maybe of the environment or maybe some physical object or another organism tried to attack it, and it had an injury and it healed. During the healing process and after it, it would have exuded certain material from the body, and that is what is popularly called as exosomes. And it seems that right now in the world, the biggest mistake and the biggest scientific flaw is being committed with scientists now looking at material that is being excreted by the body and it's stationary, putting it under the microscope and saying, hey, that's a virus. So coming to the point of why we are getting the symptoms. Uh, so here is something that I want to share. That it's a principle, it's a very scientific and basic principle. What does it say? A permanent delta change in the external environment causes a detoxification and rebalancing of the human body and its entire energy system. Now, if I want to relate it to something simple that all human beings experience, like this injury on your foot, then we can talk of the seasons changing. Let's go back a couple of centuries, where the seasons change from, summer to winter and rainy season. And we know this all across the world, especially in a country like India. When the rainy season comes in, within 2-3 days, it just starts, clouds come in and you have rainfall. There's a lot of temperature change, temperature, pressure, humidity. And obviously the human body has to respond to that and rebalance itself. So during the time it goes through a detoxification stage, which is actually giving you those symptoms of cough, cold, flu, body ache, loss of taste and smell. And all of us, right from our childhood, our doctors have told us, seasonal flu, you have to go through it. There is no antibiotic and no antiviral thing can do anything for you. It is a process of the human body. And we all know that to be true. Whether it's 4 or 5 days of flu, we had to go through it and no medicines would help us. So these symptoms, cough, cold, flu, body pain, and loss of taste and smell and all of that, they are not necessarily coming from any microorganism. Of course, when we all get bacterial infection, right? We get fungal infection. That's a regular thing. But during that time, we do get fever, and that goes on for some days. But we do not experience much of a body ache, extreme fatigue, breathlessness, loss of taste and smell. That is what happens. These things, all of these things do not happen when you have organism infection to the human body. So now I'm coming from 200 years back to the first time we had radio waves on this planet. That is, the radio came in, and during the time of the Spanish flu, both of them that coincided. And ever since 2G, 3G, 4G came in, every time if you look at the research, there are timeline graphs which have been plotted which show the launch of these new electronic systems. Now 2G or 3G, it slowly became a permanent field uh, across the planet. Now, um, so that permanent field causes same rebalance for if that field is not in the jungles, the or the Amazon forest, then people over there are not getting the effect. But if it's happening all across the world where you're having mobile phones, then everybody across the world is going to go through the symptoms. And till the time it takes about 4 or 5 days for you to rebalance to this permanent change around you. So till 3G and 4G, we were having the symptoms of 5, 6 days of flu. But now with 5G, and you have to look at the specifics of this technology, that it's gone into, gigahertz, because even 4G was just up till 850 megahertz or 950 megahertz. So with this high frequency, and the towers have to be much closer, so it becomes a more intense field. There is a permanent field being set up across this entire planet with each 5G tower going up. And that permanent field the human body has to respond to. And it appears that that is what is causing the long duration of 1 week, 14 days, and even up to 21 days of cough, cold, flu, different loss of taste and smell, even diarrhea, even secretion of, from the eyes. So uh, it is very evident that 5G is the only new thing in the world that is, causing all of this. And there's more research on 5G, which is called targeted, you know, array beam kind of focusing projections, which cause, damage. Now, of course, all of this 5G field, it exists from satellites, and it's slowly going around the globe, and more people are getting affected. And those people whose immune systems are not strong, they are the first ones to get the effect of this field. So we already knew almost a year back, it was the old people who were having weak immune systems or weak liver on a lot of medication, breathing problems. So they were the first people to get affected. After that, it came to the comorbid people. That means the people who are on all these medicines, high BP, cholesterol, diabetes, and all that. So anybody on these medicines, they have their immune system functioning to, half of its capacity. So I will just talk of some more things that all of us in the world are subjected to right now, which is why our immune systems are not even functioning at 20% of its capacity. So when you don't have your immune function, or your homeostatic mechanisms in your body functioning, how is it going to respond to this new permanent energy field and rebalance itself within 4 or 5 days? It is not going to do that. It's going to, go through 7 or 14 days of sickness. And those people who have a good immune systems and can adapt are adapting, without much of symptoms. So what are the other things that are causing toxicity in the human body? Uh, um, Regretfully, many of the COVID protocols are what are reducing our immunity. So the mask is bringing down the amount of oxygen we have in our body. And even I, once I wear a mask for more than an hour or hour and a half, I start getting a heavy head, and it gets into a headache later. Sanitizers are also chemicals that are put into the skin, go into your bloodstream, cause blood toxicity and lower immune function. Social distancing, of course, is a very emotionally and mentally, it causes emotional and mental trauma. So when your energy body goes lower, then your immune function also goes lower, your life force energy goes lower. Lockdowns have, of course, restricted mobility and shut down people from their jobs, so they also have fear of financial worries, and their entire energy system, especially the root chakra, which is their sense of security, gets damaged. Uh, then we have chemtrails, which are a lot of planes flying all over the world, putting toxic chemicals in the air, and even the latest endeavor by Bill Gates to spray certain forms of aluminum in the atmosphere, claiming that there's the global warming is happening because the sun and the sun flares are increasing. So the next thing is, of course, toxic air, which is all of our own creation through too much of vehicles and factories. Then the stress of the pandemic, keeping you indoors. People are not getting good exercise. They're not getting enough vitamin D, which is a very important requirement for good immune function. And yes, further, there's denatured soil or soil that has got hardly any nutrients because of modern farming practices and chemicals in the soil. And then also GMO foods, which are not natural foods, which the human body has a lot of trouble processing, and whatever is unnatural the body kind of throws out, so it lacks nutrition. Processed foods with all of their chemicals, synthetic chemicals, stabilizers, and uh, preservatives, artificial taste enhancers, they are all toxic foods into the human body. So if I would put 5% engagement of your human body in all of these things, right? Or 10%, you wouldn't have, that means at any point in time, your human body is engaged with fighting all of these things. So you will literally have, just about 80% of your immunity will be working to mitigate the damage done by all these things to the human body. So if we, okay, I'll just complete this list. Then point number 12 is toxic body products. That is all the, the deodorants, the shampoos, the makeup, the skin creams. If any of them have got chemicals, and then they are also bringing toxicity into your skin, into your bloodstream, and into your liver function, your kidney function. Everything goes down. And lastly, what is mentioned is electromagnetic fields. So even before 5G, too much of a Wi-Fi in the house, too much of Bluetooth, and various, scanning systems, and so much of radiology that we go through. Those are also causing toxicity to the human body. So my main message in this point is that uh, if we are going to bring things in like 5G, uh, we are fighting against a very powerful permanent field, and every human being at some time on the planet is going to go through these COVID symptoms. And many people who have got other toxicities in their lives, like what is listed here, they are not going to have a chance of surviving this. So we have to look at ourselves and ask, this is from the people, the public have to ask this question about, have we asked for 5G? I mean, I was pretty happy with even 3G 10 years back. My mobile used to do streaming videos, and I had no problem file sharing or doing anything online through my mobile. So these are all brought by businesses looking for profits, and they don't look at the safety aspects of these technologies. So it is we who have to put such things, put them aside. We have to do the research, and especially medical people need to form at least a committee in India that does thorough work on too much of EMF and the 5G damage, which is causing so much of toxicity. Now, what this permanent 5G field does is, as the field is around you, it creates mild inflammation in the mucosa of your lungs and the cells of your lungs, and it's also your intestinal tract. and that inflammation is giving these symptoms of COVID. And furthermore, when these your insides of your body get inflamed, then their immunity goes down. Their fighting capacity against germs and other bacteria, like for example the pneumonia bacteria, the TB bacteria, they're all there across the around you, and you do not get the infection just because you do not have inflammation in your liver or your lungs. But once mild inflammation sets in with this kind of a harsh permanent failure, immunity goes down, and any of these parasites can get to you. And and that's what causes the cytokine storm that is talked about so much. A very low depressed immune system is going to allow these pathogens to multiply in your body at a very high rate. In 1990, when I was just 20 years old, I almost died of pneumonia because I was coughing blood and I could not breathe. And it did not happen to me just ordinarily. No, I was sleeping on the floor on a very thin, mat. Uh, that time I was in Pune doing my engineering, and the winter was it went down to 6 degrees. So it's these environments around us that weaken our immune system. And I also had a friend, a room partner, who was living with me, and he had a bed with a 8-inch mattress. And for example, I was not buying a bed because I didn't want to put financial burden on my father. I'd already asked him to buy me a bike, which was not in the budget. So I was just kind of saving money, and I said, from every month, the money that I get, I'll save and I'll buy, a mattress of 4-5 thousand later. But I made that mistake, and I allowed the environment to get to my body and weaken its immunity, and that's why I got pneumonia. So you would see even in the first wave and also in the second wave, people across the world are dying of ground glass opacities in the lungs, and which is classified as pneumonia. So so this is actually what is happening right now, and we need to handle all of these things, and we need to prevent toxicity to the human body, uh, and that's the way that I think that we can survive this phase. But of course, we know that 5G also is very unnecessary. It's very harsh. It's just a new technology, and we should put a stop to it and roll it back. And this is only what people can do, because we are the people who are getting affected by it. So all of these points in more detail, please visit the Awaken India website and download the same document that I referred to earlier, The Truth of the Scamdemic. Okay, for all the details, each of these points I explain in a lot of detail. So it's a lot of education, and this is a time for humanity, on this planet, to really understand the immune function of the human body, and that if you do not do these harsh things to the human body, it is not going to get sick by these small organisms that are around. Uh, it is presumed that these viruses have come from the jungles. Have you gone into the jungles and seen that in those places that there is no pandemic whatsoever? There is no pandemic. What does that tell you, right? It tells you that uh, the viruses are not killing those people, and secondly, there is no 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and all that in the jungle. So coming last to what the common man is experiencing, right? I'll just talk of one point, which is this is also from that scamdemic document. So we all know during the first phase of this pandemic, the Center for Disease Control and WHO stated that the virus was transmitted via contact, that is, my touch and through droplets. And so all of 2020, we were doing, even me personally in my house, it seemed ridiculous that I was washing bananas and, cartons of food and all of these things with soap water. And even if I had got some food from outside, we would heat all of it to kill the virus. Okay. But then, somewhere in the starting of 2021, uh, CDC and WHO declared that the virus is airborne. So that means it's free floating in the air, and in your air conditioning systems. Of course, no new photograph came of coronavirus developing wings or something, that it got from a heavy form to a lighter form. Um, and but the fact was that they stated that this thing is in the air. But if you notice that all of us across the globe got fed up of washing all our things, and since January this year, nobody has been washing anything. We get all the food from outside. We eat roadside food as well. And if it's in the air, obviously it's falling on our hands, right? So this is not a lab test. This is what everybody's experiencing. So these things have to match. You see, there's something that is being said in a lab. It has to kind of match with real life. So obviously, the air is falling on our hands all the time. And we just put on a mask when we go outside. We don't do that in our home. And this air that's falling on our hands, we are touching our face about 20 times a day, our nose, our eyes, our ears. So we are infecting ourselves 20 times a day, all of us across the planet. And so what does a mask prevent? Maybe the 21st or 22nd prevention of infection from proximity with somebody. And what does social distancing achieve? Maybe you go in a crowd, you don't go in a crowd every day, maybe once a day or once every alternate day. So that may be the 23rd or 24th infection. But what about the 20 times that you've already subjected your nose, your mouth, your eyes to your hands, which are on which the air is falling with coronavirus every day, right? So when this happens, what do you realize? What sense do you make of it? Yeah, so the first thing is that either this we are putting the virus in ourselves every day, and either the first thing is if you're not falling sick, that means this virus does not exist first, or the second option is that it exists, but it is not infective at all, and it's not killing people. So then why bother about it? People are dying of other causes, what I mentioned. And the third is that it could be very infectious, but everybody across the world has got herd immunity, who are doing all of these things daily, who are infecting ourselves daily. We've all got herd immunity and we're immune to the virus, which means that we don't need any vaccine. What are these vaccines for? We already have the immunity. So this is what the common man is understanding very clearly in the world, that the so-called effects and the symptoms of this virus are coming from other sources, and there are so many alternative treatments to it. For example, the emergency use of the vaccine only comes when you cannot find an equal to or better method to cure it. Now, I went through coronavirus full-blown symptoms for a week in May this year, and all that I did was rest at home. Rest was important, allow the body to heal because this field is around and my body has to adapt to it. So 5G towers, the installation in Goa, it was announced in February this year, and they are already, on with the implementation, installation, and testing. So I went through 7 days of these symptoms, and my oxygen went down to about 90. But I just did some simple breathing. I electrolyzed myself. I did a little bit of sun bath in the morning. Electrolyze meaning coconut water or having electral. Simple supplements like vitamin C, vitamin D, B12, zinc, uh, and breathing, and a little bit of acupressure. That's all I did to get over this. So there are millions of people in India and across the globe using different systems called, I call integrative natural medicine. People use a system called Nature Cure. There's the Ayush protocol for treating COVID in India. There's a homeopathy protocol also for it. There is the NICE protocol that is done by Dr. Biswarup Roy Chowdhury, where they've cured, I think, more than 70, 80,000 people by now in India without a single death. So we have to understand that electrical fields and all of that will happen, but definitely we should not allow this 5G to go in any further and put people at such a big risk. But we should all take care of our health and take the right steps to improve our immunity. So that's what I wanted to share today. And now we can open up people who want to ask some questions.
Actually, Nandini has raised her hand.
So bringing in first Nandini into the panel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, Nandini. Yes, good evening.
I'm Nandini from New Delhi. I've met you, Darryl, in Gurgaon some years back. I am in complete agreement with your presentation because I have observed certain things going on around me in Delhi also. First of all, I must say that I lost my brother to COVID. He was 46 years old and he had just taken the vaccine. He died within 20 days of taking the vaccine. But of course, I noticed a lot of towers that have come up around the area where where my parental home is. And I've seen those towers are very different. They were not the ones which used to be there earlier. There would be one tower maybe within the vicinity. Every 100 meters or 200 meters has a tower, and I'm talking about a very posh locality of Delhi, which is Vasant Vihar. My brother was he had started taking metformin in the last 6 months of his life because of all this COVID, and he was strictly following the protocol. He was not required to take the vaccine due to duress because of some work or employment related issues, but he wanted to take it. We've had major arguments. I used to keep telling him and sending him these reports on 5Gs and all, and he used to dismiss it, saying, oh, this is complete absurd nonsense. And I have discussed this thing with so many people, but people tend to dismiss this 5G as if this is something which is like a stupid theory, and you don't want that, you're anti-development and that kind of thing. But I've seen it very close hand, and it is very sad the way everybody's their eyes are closed, and we are being forced to take vaccinations, otherwise we can't travel, we can't do this, we can't do that. People are not able to see that it is against, it's a violation of their rights. They are just so blinded. They can't even stop wearing masks. I still see people walking and wearing those masks. Something has happened to everybody's thinking capacity. Also, I noticed that during this whole COVID and all that thing, no government ever told its people to expose their bodies to sunshine. No government took that sort of care to tell people that to avoid processed food or that kind of food, and take natural food to boost their immunity, to work out or do some regular exercise wherever they were. These are very simple things to handle anybody's lifestyle, except we were first put in fear, and people like us who don't bother about the news or the newspapers or the TV or anything, we were the least affected because we don't care about microbes coming, attacking. Nothing happens to us. But the scary part is this 5G coming through the satellite. Where will we run? Where can we go? Where are the forests, and where are we city people? Where are we going to go? It really bothers me. I am told that now.
That's an important that you have made. That is very surprising that from the government and from the health department, there have been no instructions to the common people, in India. In fact, everything that has been pushed on the radio, on your mobile phone, every single day since the starting of this pandemic, has been pushing this business of telling people that they are going to get infected by this, and they're telling them to take the vaccine as a treatment. So it seems that there's a bigger force in the world, whether it's money power, whether it's pharmaceutical big pharma mafia that everybody has come to understand very clearly. And they are pulling the string so badly that even in a country like India, which has such ancient healing sciences, that have been
Absolutely.
carried on to generations since 5,000 years at least, that we have to listen to some, talking heads on these new agencies called CDC and WHO, like as if we do not know anything about health. So it's the biggest tragedy in a country like India. I'm very clear about that. And it seems that, yes, there are multinational forces and transnational corporations, which now people already know that there's a behind all the governments. But it seems that force is acting and not dominating even the media, even the narratives. Some one of the medical frauds was not mandating the AFI. That means these agencies are very concerned about you getting sick, so they want to vaccinate you. But when people are getting vaccinated and they're dying for just 2 3 days, few hours after the vaccine, a couple of days after the vaccine, not from COVID symptoms, right? We share the COVID symptoms. They're not dying from COVID symptoms. But then these agencies who care so much about our health, they do not want to document what has happened. So that's one of the biggest evidences of medical fraud across the globe. That there was no mandate. That is, after every vaccine, a person should have been given a regular weekly reporting mechanism, and all of this should have been online. So yes, unfortunately, I'm very sorry to hear about your brother that he did not care, and those are some of the toxicity points that I mentioned in the presentation. So it's only because of course so many of us, most of us are just ordinary human beings listening to the TV and listening to the bigger forces that others want to do, and we believe it. But that is the biggest problem. It's time for us to look at science ourselves, and that's the reason for this webinar as well. The common people now, it has been up to us if we want to save our lives and have a better future to look at the science ourselves, ask questions at every step of the way. Because these labs in their closed environments, but we can look at the results. You see, clinical trial data is still not released in India of all these vaccines. So we should start abandoning and calling foul and asking our governments to stop this mechanism that is being propagated by certain labs and agencies across the globe that are almost private in nature. And we should ask for open laboratories where people and scientists from across this country and other countries too can participate in their own countries. So there is a big need for it right now. If the government doesn't propose it, I think people should go ahead and propose a COVID committee like Germany with Rainer Kulmik. They got a corona investigation committee about the fraud. I think in India, at least with so much of health background, that we should make a committee of natural medicine and of natural sciences investigating all of this that the damage that is being done by 5G and other toxicities. And it has to be a people's movement.
Truly. And now the scary part
Yes,
is
we
that
will just take in Chandra Vikas now so that he can come in with what he would like to say.
no, now the scary part is that there is talk of vaccinating the children. What are we going to do if our children start dying? They start reacting to it.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that is also what we need to be working on, especially once the committee is made and individual people across India and people who are real scientists are trying to fight this. But the government is not giving them importance. So I think a big body has to be formed by people all across India that the government will take notice of. And we even have lawyers all across India in support, and they should all join as one unit of scientists and people who care about health, people who have a lot of experience in health, and people who are interested with holding up the law. And that kind of body needs to go forward. to stop all of this. Yeah, we just allow Chandra to put his point across. Welcome, good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes,
We just had Dr. Sanjay Rai's session at AIMS. That was a hybrid mode. And he's very categorical in saying that, we already achieved herd immunity. And, he's of the opinion that he's one of the foremost scientists in the country. He's also president of Indian Public Health Association. So all the, proper channels that we had to make our voice heard on the coronavirus issue have been exhausted. Now, I would like to move beyond, in search of coronavirus, which is the topic of the session. So my concern is that, it was clear from March 2020 itself that they are playing a hoax. I mean, I was kind of crystal clear. There are 3 articles that I wrote in succession in March and April, in which I very categorically said that, since the germ theory itself doesn't hold ground, so it's about terrain toxicity, and perhaps there are prolonged illnesses because of greater terrain toxicity, because of air, water, food, noise, light, and EMF pollution, and the elephant in the room being 5G installations. So, but yet, when I connect the dots on the larger global scenario, what emerges? For example, if you follow somebody like Antonio Guterres, who's Secretary General of United Nations in his 2nd term. Now, it's almost point blank telling us that either we cut down on carbon emissions, either we, as people, as countries, as, humanity as a whole, we must come to zero carbon emissions at the earliest possible. I mean, even now doing nothing gets us, according to Antonio Guterres scientists, IPCC scientists who are conservative, 2.7 degrees centigrade. According to my group of scientists, it's actually 4 degrees centigrade, because carbon dioxide has shelf life of about 200 years. So the amplification that's already set in will get us there, irrespective of whether we pour any further carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases in the atmosphere or not. Now, this is where, when you were here for the Gaia Earth Sunset Summit, what we discussed, the LACE Gaia model, that localized abundance and circular economy is the meeting ground for both, people to stay healthy. So to kind of bring down terrain toxicity and kind of start terrain detox, as well as to meet carbon emission targets, or not just zero, but even negative. So create carbon sinks, create food forests, create more water bodies, eliminate all kinds of waste from the system. There should be zero to landfill lifestyles, waste to wealth, eco-friendly transportation, more of bicycling, more of walking, more of localization, and eco-friendly housing, the passive energy use. Similarly, our approach to education, health should be holistic. We must have our cadres ready for distress response, for caregiving, for elderly people. We should have communal harmony. So all that put together leads us to a common meeting ground. Now, we try to create with Earthkeepers Connect, with yourself leading from the front, alliance, which we called as Sovereign Union of People's Republic and Eco-Anarchies of Mother Earth. So unless we begin, so my question very pinpointedly is this, that unless we begin to question the sovereignty of the nation states and the illegitimacy of the United Nations itself as a very skewed, asymmetric, highly unjust and whimsical club of some political demagogues, some bastards, some monsters who have no accountability, no responsibility to the 8 billion of us humans, as well as to all our species that we cook coexist with, that we are so interdependent, our lives are so interwoven, right from the microbes to the elephants and even the bigger creatures. So, Darryl, are we come to a point, Sanjay Rai's talk where he is completely saying that herd immunity is achieved. You are saying that it's a complete hoax. Nobody is turning up to question you that anybody has trace of coronavirus, the novel coronavirus, which is the SARS-CoV-2. So like in the JFK investigation, they came to a point where the lawyer, he had to say that the evidence that you are putting up is like not finding a trace of pubic hair in the whole of her house at peak hour. This is the exact words that I picked from the movie and also from the, the historical anecdotes. So is there, when there is no trace of SARS-CoV-2 being shown in a living body, creating illnesses, or that can be recognized by RT-PCR or any vaccine that can provide the protection. So we have a crystal clear case that let's move on. Let us fulfill the wishes of the United Nations. The Glasgow summit, incidentally, just started yesterday on 31st of October. The COP, the Conference of Parties of United Nations. Now, do we agree? Do you see that we should now start a new page in our activism, in our campaign towards protecting our children, our vulnerable sections, pregnant women having miscarriages, women in general facing lots of heavy bleeding because of the vaccine, lots of birth defects, children being born with blood clots in the brain. So would you say enough is enough and we start a new page both at Awaken India movement, at Earth Keepers Connect, and create a grand alliance to overcome the machinations of the big pharma, of the mercenary interests who have together come up with the GPPP, which is Global Public-Private Partnership. So could there be an alliance of people represented truly democratically, which do you believe it's possible, and where do we start?
Thank you, Chandra Vikas. So yes, I agree with you, Chandra Vikas, that about this, big that's going on from these global, as you put in, criminals who are even, blocking the common man from helping themselves with all of these lockdowns and other notifications that come out every week or every 15 days. And it clearly seems it's become very clear, at least to people who have been in the business of health and at a private level. The common man seems to be talking the most about this, and they think that they are the most informed because they are watching all the public media, which is now being called, the fake mainstream media, because those media channels are owned by all of these global corporations. So it's so funny now that the common man thinks that they know much more than people who have been treating people for illnesses for the last 30 years. And without this, allopathic medicine system, without vaccines and all of that, they do not understand the very basic that if you knew real immunity, human body function, and you knew about health, you could make people healthy without any of these contraptions. No need for vaccines, no need for tablets, no need for all of these hospital procedures and all of that, right? And those are the people. So people who know about health and are the real health scientists, they do it without all of these things. And I've been doing it, for the last 16 years, and I'm sure that at least 1,000, very specialized and effective integrative natural medicine therapists who have been treating millions of people across this globe. So such people in each country, they have to stand up, they have to form a body, and they have to, get together with the ethical lawyers of this country who really, now I don't know which lawyers are not disturbed because the vaccination phase has come to their children, if they've got children. I think all should be concerned. So there has to be an alliance in this country, especially and other countries too, of the real scientists who know real immune function and work with the natural sciences of the human body, like all our ancients always did, and what we learned in the Indian system. Such people have to come together. Now, unfortunately, this was not what our Prime Minister called forward when this pandemic started. And I was so disappointed that the announcement was made to bang the thalis and all of that, as if that is some great medical science. What I was expecting sincerely was for a call for all the great experts in this country, NISA, also the natural immunization, people who have worked with the natural sciences, they should have been called forward. A committee should have been formed. And if that has not happened in India, then we really know that businessmen are running the show. Businessmen have always made money for themselves. They have a vested interest in keeping people safe because that allows them to make more and more medicines and get more and more money. So it's come to a point where this has become very crystal clear to people all across the globe. And it's only the brave hearts who work with natural medicine who can now step forward. And that's my call also to all of this caliber of people. Get together with your lawyers, with your freedom fighters, with your people, parents who are so scared for their children right now. Form an alliance and a committee and a movement, and we have to approach the Indian government. Maybe from all these globalists have tied up the Indian government in such a bind that they are not able to do their work for this country, for the people. So we have to help them do it. I think that's the only thing that will save us right now.
Thank you, Darryl, for your valuable insights on this virus. I would also like to thank Nandini and Chandra Prakash for giving their views and experiences. It's important that we hear from even the audience. Thank you, the audience, for being with us today and asking the questions enough to be here. Tomorrow's topic is going to be coronavirus. Prevention is better than its cure. I hope to see you there. It'll be on the same link at the same time. Goodbye and have a lovely evening.